So I am probably, well, I wouldn't say probably, but most likely the most recent person to have come out. I just came out to my parents probably like a little bit over a month ago. And I mean, everyone has their little picturesque view of, how it's going to happen. And like in the back of your mind, you always know that like that's not how it's going to happen, but you always want it to sort of kind of happen somewhere in that regard. Like you have a place picked out, you have a conversational topic that you're going to like lead into, hey mom, dad, guess what? Like you have it all kind of planned out. And unfortunately for me, that's not at all how it happened. The conversation started with a very ironic conversation. We were down in San Antonio for the UTSA trip because I am in the Cowboy Marching Band, go folks. And so we were down there and my parents decided that they were gonna come down for the game too because that's what they do. And they wanted to have dinner with me and some of my friends. And I was like, that's totally fine. And so I made sure to like remind my friends, I was like, make sure you don't make any like gay jokes or anything like that because my parents don't know. And I don't want them to find out because you made a penis joke in front of them or something of that like, or knock knock, I like, whatever. So, I reminded them and I was like, please just remember, just don't mention anything like that. And we made the decision to go to Dick's Last Resort, which was, yeah. Well, actually they decided. And my parents had been drinking before we got there because we had gotten there much later than they had. And, which is totally fine. And so we showed up and I had literally been sitting in my chair for probably about 4 minutes. And if you haven't ever been to Dick's Last Resort, basically what happens is all of the waiters or waitresses are dicks. That's why it's called Dick's Last Resort. And they come up to you and they kind of make fun of you and they mock you and kind of that thing. And they make these little paper hats they put on your head and they put like degrading things on it or something like that. So I've been sitting for 4 minutes and my waiter comes up and he was like, oh look, fresh bait. And he rolled up a hat, put it on my head and wrote Mom, Dad, I'm gay on it and drew an arrow towards my face. And my mom thought it was absolutely hysterical. And she took multiple pictures and she told me it was gonna go in the family scrapbook and she literally could not get enough. And my dad was just like, huh, funny. And I was looking at my friends and I was panicking because I was like, oh, this is like really awkward. Like, wow, we literally just talked about this 5 minutes ago upon entering Dick's Last Resort that we should not mention anything about me being gay, and here it is written on my face. And people were looking at me and laughing. And, so I sent out like one of those like, Snapchat. So I sent out like a mass Snapchat and I was like, this is really awkward and like, here's why. And everyone's like, you should just take advantage of the opportunity and just tell your parents. And I was like, oh, but I don't think they'd really appreciate it if I told them at Dick's Last Resort because a hat said so. And so I was talking to my sister. My sister's known ever since I've known, basically. And she was like, I really think that you should just go with it. And so I was like, okay. So I like planned it all out, since I was there with friends. I was like, so here's what's gonna happen. After dinner, I'm just gonna branch off with my parents and be like, let's go hang out and have some fun, because we were on the Riverwalk. And I was like, y'all just go do your thing and I'll meet back up with you and let you know how it went. And they're like, okay, we love you, good luck. And I was like, I love you too, thank you. And so my parents and I stopped at like one of those little like weird souvenir shops along the side of the Riverwalk, the one that sells like oversized sombreros and other things that says I love San Antonio. My mom was looking around for really stupid things that she didn't need, and so we walked out when we were about to leave, and she's like, all right, we're gonna go to another one. And I was like, hold on, let's just sit down like for a second, because there's a little table outside. I was like, let's just sit down and let's have a talk. And she was like, okay. And I was like, so there's something I really, really need to tell you. And my mom goes, you're gay. And I was like, oh, well, you just killed the whole conversation. And she's like, that's not what you're gonna say, right? And I was like, no, actually that really was what I was gonna say. And she's like, you're kidding. And I was like, no, I was literally going to say I'm gay. And she's like, I thought you were just gonna try to make a joke off the hat again. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure that I am 100% gay. And of course she had her whole little phase of, are you sure you're not experimenting? Like, I mean, you've only kissed one girl, are you sure you didn't like it? Like, and then she's like, I don't know how I'm gonna be able to handle that. Like, what if I go to church and someone knows and they're gonna ask me? And I was like, don't worry, no one else at church knows. And like she had all these questions, and I was like trying to console my mom because she literally looked like she was about to break down into tears. And I just looked at my dad, and I was like, "Okay, Dad, so how are you handling this?" And my dad's like, "You know, Connor, I had my suspicions, and you just confirmed them all. So, thanks." And I was like, "Well, you're welcome, Dad," and continued to console my mom. But the good part of the story is that my mom did not retaliate in anger or aggression or anything like that. She kind of internalized her feelings, which is what she's really good at doing. And I mean, I wish it would have gone a little bit better, but the thing of the matter is that I had left a little candy trail for my mom to follow, like hoping that, you know, eventually she'd kind of just figure it out herself, and then when I told her, she'd just be like, "Oh, don't worry, I already know." But she's very oblivious to everything, and she didn't even notice. Like, I went to gay pride, and she knows I went to gay pride, and she just thought it was a funny coincidence that I was there. And I had a gay pride shirt, and she was like, "Oh, it's a funny coincidence." And so, you know, granted, this was probably a month and a half ago, that I actually went through the act of actually coming out to them. And let me tell you, it's probably the scariest thing you're ever going to do in your life. Well, I say probably, just because, you know, obviously no one knows exactly how it's going to go. You can't have a definitive answer as to how your parents are going to take this set of news, this life-changing set of news for them and how they view you. But the good news of the story is that, I mean, my parents still love me, and of course my mother tells me every single time she calls me, like 5 times before she hangs up the phone, that she loves me so much, and she'll continue on down the road. She's still questioning what that means and how to adapt to it, because I come from a very religious background. My parents are both Methodists, and my aunt and my uncle are Catholic. So we have a little awkward discrepancy upon, you know, the religion and sexual orientation side of life. But she hasn't, you know, she's been very careful about, you know, not bringing up anything on the point of religion and you know, gays or anything like that, because she knows that it's a very sensitive topic, and she's not ready herself to have said conversation. I know that we're going to have it later on down the road as to what it means for her and for me and all those things. And in fact, I think she kind of told me that we're going to have it over Thanksgiving break, because she said that she needed to voice some of her concerns, and I was like, I'm totally fine with you voicing your concerns. But I just want to, you know, if you are struggling through the hard decision of whether or not to come out, or the process of trying to figure out how to come out to your parents or any family member or a friend or anyone, just don't overthink it, because when you overthink it, that's when you get really freaked out and really, really, really nervous about everything, and that's when you just, everything goes south. Also, don't go to Dick's Last Resort. It's a horrible place. No, I'm just kidding. But just you know, especially if you're really, really nervous like I was, come talk to me. Come talk to any of the other SOTA exec members. Talk to anyone, especially anyone who speaks tonight at this event. And I'm sure that any of us would be happy to help you come out with some sort of way to tell your parents or your loved ones or your friends or something like that, or just to show you that someone here in this room does care about you, especially if it doesn't go the way you envisioned it. That's essentially it. Yay.
I'm Savannah. Mine's happy. My parents were really great. I always knew I was gay, even whenever I was probably since like 8th grade or something like that. And I would think about it and then be like, no, that's too complicated, and just I wouldn't worry about it for a couple months, and then sometimes like everyone would leave the house and I'd just get on the web and go to like a gay chat room and cry to like Coldplay or something, and then I'd be like, no, it's okay, I'm not gay. And so like, or it was just something I ignored because I grew up in a town, or I didn't grow up, I moved a lot, but the place where I ended up having my high school years was rural, and there weren't any gay people there, so it was pointless to be gay anyway, because I wasn't gonna date anyone, you know, so, but one New Year's, my parents picked me up because they were afraid of all the crazy drunk people who were gonna be on the road, so I was like, I can drive, but whatever. And I hadn't been drinking, but whenever we got home, I was like, well, it's New Year's, and I didn't drink to be safe, but now I want a drink. And they were like, okay, here's a drink. And I was like, you know what, it's a New Year's, this is it. So I was like, so I'm gay. And my mom was like, yeah. And so I was like, oh, well, I don't know what I was freaking out about because that was easy. And then like after that, nothing really happened because I was still in high school, and I just sort of forgot about it again, and then sometimes I was like, well, maybe I'm not, because I've never actually been with a girl, like, how do I know, you know? And then my sophomore year of college, I met a girl, and it was like, all the feelings that, like, my best friend in high school had been talking about with the boys, I was like, oh my god, I get it! You know? Like, this is my first crush, you know? And it was really great, and it really helped me come out to like everyone. Like everyone I know, pretty much everyone who knows me knows I'm gay. People I work with, if like it comes up, you know, like then I tell them. My parents know, my friends know, my sister knows. Everyone knows. I'm just really open, I guess. So that's my story.
My coming out story started whenever I was 4 years old. All from the age of preschool all the way through 7th grade, I had a best friend. And he and I always used to make fun of because people would see us holding hands and people see us butting around and they assumed that we were both gay. I was, and he wasn't. And in my 8th grade year, he was in a serious four-wheeler accident. He lost all memory of the first 12 years of his life. And after that, I felt like it would never be okay again for me to feel comfortable with people. I felt like it would always be kind of a stigma for me to have male friends. And throughout high school, I only hung out with the girls in my class. I made sure that I was the star athlete and the great student because I felt like it was an easy way to hide from all the things that weren't right in my personal life. And whenever I was 15 years old, for the first time, a gay student moved into our high school, and I went to a high school of 75 kids. So, I mean, it was kind of a shocker for rural Missouri. And I always, for some reason, felt kind of repulsed. Like, I just felt like I would never be that person who is comfortable in themselves. I wouldn't ever come out because I didn't want to be treated like someone different. And so, for years, I just held it in. I graduated high school. I thought that everything was just gonna go away in college. I would come and find my true love and marry a girl and do all the things that I was supposed to. And then I got here and I met someone special. And the first person I ever fell in love with was a girl who goes to OSU. And I didn't know how to take it. I thought that I might be wrong, that all those feelings that I'd always had that made me different, they might have actually gone away. And after a while, I messed things up pretty bad in that relationship, and after that I did a lot of self-evaluation, and eventually came to the point where I realized that I didn't want anyone else. I wanted to live my life alone because that was easier than trying to come back and have personal relationships with people and open open up. And so for a couple months, I just sat alone in my dorm room every night. I oftentimes would cry myself to sleep, and I felt like I would just not be happy. I would go days upon end without smiling. And then I met another person, and I kind of felt the connection there that I needed to be true to all those things that I had always felt. I needed to honor the fact that my friend and I were so close throughout elementary school, because I had always secretly known that that's something different. I knew that I was gay from age 10. Like, I knew what it was. I had fully realized it. And after a few months, I decided that I was going to come out to my parents, because there were just a lot of things that weren't matching up for them. They would ask me questions that I had no answers to. And so on the day of my sister's college graduation, at the beginning of a 5-hour car ride, I took my sister aside and told her in tears, and she stopped the car along the side of the road, and I feared for everything that I had always heard, that they were just going to disown me, and that I would be alone walking the highway in the middle of the night. And she stopped the car, got out, came around to the passenger side, and gave me the biggest embrace I've ever been in my life. And without a hint of hesitation, she says, "I love you," to me. And that was the most fulfilling moment of my entire life. I've always felt like she and I have something that can't be replaced by anyone else, because there's no words to describe how reparative that was to me as a person. And then about an hour later, I switched vehicles and was in the car with my parents, and told both of my parents at the same time. And my mother held my hands and did all the things that a mother would, and my dad looked out the window, and I said his name. I tried to talk to him, and nothing came back. Just dead silence for 4 hours. And for the next 3 weeks, I would wake up every morning, see him go to work in the same truck, do tasks at the farm, and nothing. And one morning, about 7 o'clock in the morning, someone taps me on the leg, and bleary-eyed, I stand up, and my dad hugs me and says that it's all going to be all right, and then later that day attempts to convince me that I was wrong. And for him to betray me and put me in that situation, it just brought all of that back. And a week or so later, I broke up with the person I was dating, and apparently burned a lot of ties with friends and people I felt cared for me in Stillwater. And I've never really recovered from that. I've never repaired any of those bridges, and though I've tried, I still feel alone a lot of nights. But I've taken strength from the fact that my family took me back. They cast me out. Well, my dad especially cast me out whenever he told me that that I needed to change, and then to eventually have him grow to love me and be that best friend and father and all the things that I knew that I needed. That's what I've taken my strength from. And I don't know how to describe the feeling of being completely alone. And I'm sure that a lot of the people in this room have felt the same way. But it's just something where you count your blessings where they're given, and you can't let one or two or even a group of 10 or an entire community, you can't let them define you. And my coming out story may not be as happy as some people's, because there still are a lot of people who are hurt and who don't understand what that means. I lost my best friend about a month ago because of this, and I don't feel like it's ever going to be the same, but I feel like I'm a better person, and I feel like my family is there to support me, and so it's better in the way that I'm now true to myself.